Hey guys, hope you are well. Just wanted to make a quick video to sort of defend Daniel from Salem. And I could defend him with some sort of background because I certainly was a journalist. There's a lot of conversation as to whether or not I'm still a journalist, but that's a different conversation for a different day. But I've certainly had about 2 years of experience essentially interviewing people for local TV news as well as for local print publications. So I certainly have a base of knowledge, even though some might argue I'm not good at that base of knowledge. But I certainly have that base of knowledge to analyze who is interviewing whom effectively, what they could have done worse, what they could have done better. And I just kind of wanted to post a video as somebody who is a journalist to defend Daniel from Salem, who I thought did a truly excellent job. And some of the guff, and it's only some, I think most of the comments are actually pretty supportive of his interviewing tactics, but some of the comments were so discouraging for Dan, and this is something, being in the YouTube space, that you have to get used to. You're going to have a lot of shit thrown in your direction. Have inspired him to put down his arms and no longer protest at La Poubelle. But yeah, I wanted to analyze that, and I also want to talk about my last video and the Reddit SPTV Unvarnished talking about my video. So I'll address some of their comments as well, and that will be towards the end. So if you want to hear about that, that will be towards the end of the video. I will say, before I talk about it at length, I didn't think any of the comments in that Reddit were actually particularly unfair or vitriolic or personal or anything like. They weren't even attacks. They were disagreements and highlighting some key points. So, and they actually had quite a bit of legitimacy. And yes, I totally do an AMA if there's any interest, by the way, if they're watching. But I'll talk about that more towards the end. But yeah, guys, we've got to encourage people getting as much information as possible from the supporters of rapists as we possibly can. And the tactic to do that is to be amenable, is to appear friendly, is to even sort of pretend you kind of like that person for 40 minutes. And that's sort of what Dan did. Dan, I think, is just a pretty reasonable, measured person. And it's interesting, some of the protesters, and I've seen this in Chicago, and certainly in LA, some of the protesters, and I admire this, are so focused on Scientology and bringing down Scientology. It's purely us versus them, and they cannot see anybody supportive of Scientology as a human being, as somebody worth even exchanging any social niceties with. And I completely get that, because do you lose your humanity if you support a cult who covers up for rapists, who employs child labor, who confiscates passports, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, who fair games after people? I get that. I'm the kind of person where I can't be that mean to somebody in their, whoever it is, unless somebody directly insults me first. And I think Dan is similar in this, and other protesters are dissimilar in this regard. I cannot be mean. I can't. It just makes me feel weird. I just can't. Even in Chicago, all the respect for all the people who are going as hard as hell against these protesters, but there's something that made me feel maybe cringe a little bit. And again, I think it was the right tactic, but I think it's also good to have a healthy amount of protesters who have a diverse viewpoint as to how they protest. So I was screaming in Chicago and screaming in the general direction, but I didn't want to scream in anybody's direct face. And when I would communicate with somebody, it was more kind of silly. There was a security guard, I called him Dr. Oz. One guy said he knew I had warrants, and I told him about my whole arrest saga. And, instead of really getting angry, I said I was honored that he heard of me. Like, I felt kind of famous. It was kind of cool. So again, we all have different ways that we interact with people. And being nice to somebody, I don't think, should get the consternation of the SPTV fans in the way that Daniel from Salem has been receiving, and so much where it's discouraged him to sort of throw in the towel. Look, when you're interviewing somebody, you need to set the stage. And you need to put the person at ease. And the moment you sit or even stands with them, if you're coming out of the gate screaming at them and accusing things of them, the conversation is going to be shut down reflexively. Now, with Francois, Daniel had this very meek and polite approach in talking to her. Now, what did that approach get us? It got her to double down. What it got us to do, And for the people who have been aggressively in opposition to all of the LA protesters, this interview gave the protesters the license, the moral license, to continue protesting La Poubelle, because she gave us the information we need to hear. Francois had this moment where she could have said, I apologize for covering up for my friend Chrissy. Period. I apologize. That was wrong. She even could have said, listen, Daniel is still my friend. I don't know if I completely believe the full story, but I did cover up for this, and I will be friends with Daniel, but at the same time, I need to apologize to her, and I'm no longer going to buy Danny's wine, but still a friend. I would completely disagree with that. If my friend's a rapist, I'm not going to be friends with the dude anymore. But some people could try to at least make the argument, well, he's been my friend for decades, and that won't be negated. She didn't take that, and she answered sort of like a politician would. And when you interview a politician, you know they're never going to give you a real answer. Like, I was in New Hampshire, I got to ask the candidates a couple questions. Actually, the one person who gave me a real answer, I asked Marianne Williamson, longshot candidate, would she challenge Scientology, would she revoke Scientology's tax-exempt status? And she did, and she said she would, so that was cool. But generally, you're asking these politicians, and Francois almost falls into this category, you're asking these politicians a question where you know the answer to, but you could elaborate on that non-answer. And through that non-answer, you could analyze what they truly mean and what the ramifications are for their dodging of your specific questions. Again, a politician, except for maybe Marianne, will never really answer a question honestly, but you still ask them the question because you need to hold their feet to the fire. So all of this, Francois avoided taking responsibility, and therefore we have because I'm going to be in LA too, joining all of you guys eventually, although I'm taking forever to get out there. Protesters have the moral right to continue this, because again, Francois could have shut it down in that exact moment. She could have completely shut it down and said, I apologize to the victim. It would have been that easy. So the fact that Danny gave her the opportunity to do that and she didn't take it, that's not Danny's fault. Also, Danny was incredibly prepared. He knew about her flipping off the Jane. I didn't even know about that. He knew about her flipping off the Jane Does. He knew about all of her history, how many times she showed up in court. So the dude, even though it was an on-the-fly interview, the dude actually came in with his research. And Lord knows you guys have held me to task. There have been times where I've interviewed people, and I've completely thrown up on myself, and I didn't have the research that I need to have. Danny completely had the research that he needed to have an effective interview. And guys, like the interview was 40 minutes long. To me, also an interview, in addition to finding out key information, if you're on YouTube or you're on the news or you're on anything, you want people to be entertained by the interview. And I was fascinated by hearing her talk, the way she communicates, the way that she says, well, maybe we're not friends yet, but maybe we can, the way she's kind of trying to push that. Aaron said, interestingly enough, that she was trying to flirt with him. I think that's entirely possible. I don't think he was into that. Now, I like older women. If I was there, I might have fallen prey. I'm kidding. I wouldn't have fallen prey to that. But I saw that tactic and saw her trying to see if that was an avenue she could go down. But it was fascinating to see her tactics and to see her avoid, every single question, like the whole wine situation. Well, it's not owned by Danny, so she's trying to exonerate herself in that regard. And again, she gave this very politician-y answer where she says, I apologize if I offended everybody, right? I apologize for everything, anything. It's not even everything that happened. It's anything. If something I wasn't aware of happened and I didn't know and it flew by my head, I'm sorry for that. That's the ultimate evasive politician-y answer. But she had that platform where she was able to do that. Also, she made the theory that Daniel was also too willing to be her friend. She kept making, I don't think that's true, she kept making overtures saying maybe we could be friends, can I get you a Coke, can you hang out? And he didn't actually accept any of those offers. I also thought it was weird that she said, can I give you, maybe Dan is recovering from alcohol, which, respect for the Coke offer. But it's kind of cheap. You think, like, if that's not the case, you think she'd be like, hey, I'd love to offer you our favorite cocktail instead of a damn Coke. So I thought that was interesting. You think if she really wanted to bury the hatchet, knock him out with a spectacular the trash drink that the restaurant has. I love that it's called the trash can. That's the greatest name ever for a restaurant. But yeah, man, I think you have to come off as somebody friendly with your interviewee subject. You have to come off as, at least in that moment, you have to sort of trick the person, and it's deceptive, and it's not a good thing, but you have to sort of trick the person, pretend that you actually like them. And with that, that person gets comfortable and gives you more material for you to analyze and gives more truths or non-truths for you to finally be able to get down to the actual truth. So, dude, I hope Daniel doesn't throw in the towel. He's great at this, and he's a great interviewer. And this is the first time, really, there's been a substantive sit-down conversation with anybody still in the pro-Masterson camp. Now, of course, this person isn't a current Scientologist, but Lord knows with the Scientology sign in her restaurant and her friendship with Danny Masterson that she has some very, very deep connections. And this is the closest we could get to an interview from the other side. And part of it is fascinating to think, well, how do they defend themselves, right? How do they defend them? How do the people who are still friends with Danny, who are Scientologists as well, still defend him? What's the argument? And the argument is, well, they don't know all the right. The public argument is bullshit. Is, well, we don't know all the details. He's been our friend for years, yada yada. But for us to actually be able to tangibly hear the argument, I think was a very, very healthy thing. I would give him an A+. I don't think there's anything he could have done better, quite frankly. So I hope he doesn't throw in the towel. And getting comments stinks, especially getting negative comments on your YouTube is not fun, especially when you get it for the first time, because it's weird when you're in a trajectory. Like when I started, my comments were only positive, right? Because I took Scientology to task and everybody's on my side. Now, when I started weighing in on the various divisions and controversies, then I got a lot more negative comments. And some of it was legitimate, where it showed me how I could improve as an interviewer. And some of it was, oh, well, that person is just a partisan thinker. And if that person's on side A and I'm saying something sympathetic to side B, then that person's just going to hate me. And so you do learn eventually to just kind of not pay in mind, or only pay the comments in mind where you could glean some constructive criticism. And some of the comments are simply constructive criticism, and they're not personal. And speaking of which, obviously wanted to talk about the SPTV Unvarnished. They posted a Reddit about me talking about their Reddit. Now, I will say, I'll start with, speaking of being offended by comments, I wasn't offended by anything they said. I thought it would be a hell of a lot more worse, because I essentially attacked their Reddit. So, ironically, fair game if they wanted to fair game me and truly be personal, but they didn't do that. So I want to, they didn't like that they say I claim to be a journalist, and this was not a piece based on any journalistic integrity. And I say I wouldn't disagree with that. I would also say that I wasn't posting my analysis of the Alex Ross and Nora thing as necessarily journalist. Now, should I have posted a disclaimer? Sure. In the video, I didn't say I did a deep dive into research and found this. It was me shooting the shit, and it's an odd thing. So I guess I would take off my journalist cap and be an analyst. And being an analyst and a journalist might be two different things. And perhaps I can't make that distinction if I want to try to call myself a journalist. Am I really doing journalism? With that, I was not doing journalism. I was just talking about my opinion. It was a simple thing, being like, I like that these two groups are coming together and we should have less division, and some of the personal attacks could be more vitriolic. Now, a lot of people in the Reddit said that I missed some vitriolic comments on Nora's part, of which I certainly want to see, which I might, I think I'm a journalist when I would call myself, and some people say I don't deserve to ever call myself a journalist. I'm a piece of shit. So if that's the case, I hate you, you hate me, let's fight and kill each other. And I'll stab you and you stab me, and let's see who stabs each other first. But for the people who think I could still call myself a journalist, I do call myself a journalist when I actually go out and interview people, go out to events. When I was in New Hampshire covering the rallies of Trump, of Dean Phillips, of Marianne Williamson, of Ron DeSantis, of Nikki Haley, and I was interviewing people who were going to the event, and I was analyzing their speaking skills and how they might do in the election. I was a journalist. I drove up to New Hampshire, I went to all these events, I stayed for the entire events. That was me being a journalist. when I was in Chicago protesting. I don't think I was a journalist. I was a protester, right? I was someone who had come there to show my support and add some entertainment too. Some people find me an obnoxious asshole, but some people find me to be a funny guy. So I did some silly dancing and a lot of comments, and people got a kick out of that. So I wasn't a journalist when I came to Chicago. I am taking a very long time, but I'm going down to Mexico to interview migrants on the border and actually get an honest perspective as to what's actually going on in the border. There, I will be a journalist. I'll be interviewing people, getting information that other people aren't getting. I will also fly in on the 29th of May to cover a key development in the Chrissy Bixler case. There, I will be a journalist because I'm receiving key information, and I'm there in a space where other people aren't there, so I could provide some unique information. When I continue to cover all of the trial developments in Los Angeles, which I'll be doing for you, I will be a journalist. When I show up to the protests, if there's still protests at La Poubelle, which I hope there are by the time I get there, which will be mid-June, I'm not a journalist, right? So there are times where you're a journalist when you're not a journalist. Now, the SPTV Unvarnished people might argue, well, I'm being a journalist when I'm talking about and giving my opinion and analyzing some facts, because analyzing facts is the act of a journalist, and I was not doing that act. I get that, and people say there's some comments that I missed where Nora was particularly vitriolic. Guys, if you want to send that my way, I'd love to see them. I really would. And again, it's hard. You're going to get guff from both sides, having sympathy and understanding for both people who are supportive of the SPTV Foundation and people who are not, because I see good players and I see heroes on both sides of that aisle. Now, that's a position that's just going to piss everybody off, and I get that. So if I lose some subscribers, I mean, the fact, I feel like I was relatively reasoned in that entire video, only because a segment of my comments were saying I was too harsh on the SPTV community, and another big segment said I was too harsh on the pro-aftermath community. If both people are giving me guff, that means I must have struck somewhat of a reasonable tone. I will say in the comments, there are a lot of, in the SPTV Unvarnished Reddit comments, there are a lot of people saying that I at least attempted to make a reasonable tone, which I appreciate. Yeah, guys, I'd be happy to do an Ask Me Anything, a Reddit. That would be totally cool. I'd be totally into it. As in terms of looking for content to do, yeah, I mean, you'll see a lot more Scientology content now, just because I'm not on the ground doing the other stuff that I'm focused on. Scientology is not going to be the only topic I'm looking at, but for my YouTube, it starts and goes. So my YouTube will be kind of relaxed and silent until I get to a place where I'm doing journalistic work, and that will certainly be Mexico, and we'll probably spend about a month there in and out, and I'm also going to cover the election there, which is coming up. And I'll just do people tend to like this. I mean, some people don't think I should just shut the hell up, but each time I post these videos, they do get views. Somebody said, am I just doing this for views? I'm going to be a little cynical. Each time I do these videos, I get more views, and it helps with the subscribers. So there is some cynicism. I'm going to do videos that generate attention, that help my YouTube channel. Yeah, I am trying to make a go out of it. And so attention for this topic helps my YouTube. Now, I wouldn't post it unless I felt like I could uniquely lend some interesting information or an interesting take, and my take is certainly honest, and it's still worth doing, and I'll still post videos even if they don't make money or they don't generate interest, because that's just my passion. But yeah, I mean, it's fun to weigh into a controversy, and you get views because of that, and you want to help your YouTube grow. So yeah, I mean, there's some cynicism in that, but I've certainly expressed truthfully what I felt, and I did, and the main reason is I hope to find some other middlers, some other people who kind of fall in the middle and respect people from both sides of this debate, because at the end of the day, the principal goal is coming together to defeat Scientology. That is goal number one, and there's so much talent on either side, and the fact that they're not being brought together, to me, is the greatest tragedy of all. And I just want to post a little video saying, hey, is this the start of something healing? Last thing I want to say, I think I was slightly inaccurate where I said the majority of YouTube comments were in support of Aaron. Of course, the majority of comments on Aaron's channel are in support of Aaron, but if you really analyze and you think, and again, this is not my expertise or research base, but after looking at the amount of views for the pro and opposition, you could think there's probably about 50,000 people consistently watching content. And I would say, you look at the negatives, that there's a lot of anti-Aaron negative videos that have gotten a lot of attention. Some of them have gotten 5,000 to 10,000 views. If I were to put them all together, at least for my YouTube, if I were to put them all, at least for my YouTube, for example, some of the argument that Aaron has been receiving, or the consternation, is that they claim that he has deleted a fair amount of comments. Now, I will say on my YouTube, somebody said I never deleted a single damn comment. I even addressed the negative comments. I didn't delete a single negative comment. So if you look at my YouTube, and again, I was on Chris Shelton's YouTube before, and had a connection to Tony Ortega. I didn't say I supported them, but I do support a lot of Chris's work, but not with that last specific instance. But since I've had people be aware of my story from a myriad of sources on my YouTube, I've noticed that it tends to be about 35% anti-SPTV, anti-Aaron, and about 65% pro. And I think if you go in the general YouTube sphere and the general consensus, there is a certain segment, and I would probably say it's 35 to 40% who's non-supportive of him. So that was an inaccuracy. That's a real segment of the community who's non-supportive of him. Now, I disagree with them, and hey, maybe we could have a healthy debate and try to begin that. I disagree, but they are correct in saying that there is a community that is not a strong community that numbers within the thousands of people, that does not like what he's been doing in regards of his explanation for the Aftermath Foundation and a myriad of a lot of other actions. So I do want to make that correction. But yeah, guys, I think I'm a real journalist. I think the on-the-ground coverage is important. I get why people say otherwise. And I'm trying to see if there's anything else I wanted to address. Oh yeah, the last thing, dude. I'm not trying to become I've never voted for Trump. I don't like Trump. I'm not trying to become Aaron Smith-Levin's Newsmax anchor. Somebody said that the reason I'm still defending him is because I covered for him early on with the with the trial developments. Then he ended up doing himself. He ended up doing himself because I got a job at Valuetainment, which ended up being way too conservative for me. So that was a reason. I didn't ask him, or I didn't know if he'd want to continue having me or not. But that wasn't, I had a job, so it wasn't like I was going to be his anchor or do anything like that. And I'm not conservative. I'm not, some people thought I was pro-Trump. I'm certainly not pro. He is, if you read between the lines, he's obviously pro-Trump. But no, that I'm not going to be his Newsmax anchor, nor did I have an expectation or feel dropped by him in any single way, shape, or form. It might be cool if he needs it to be a point person for him. I'll ask him that, and he might have somebody else, or he might be doing it himself. So I'm going to get the info to project to my audience if there's some. And this is for anybody in the YouTube. Hey, guys, if you want me to go on and give you a rundown on the 29th, whether you're supportive or not supportive of SPTV, if you want that information to have a conversation, or you just want to call me and say, hey, what do you learn from that court case? The dissemination of information is important. And so if I could show up to an event where I find these trial developments specifically, and I could share that to you, and even if you want me to just text it to you, leave me a comment and I'll shoot you a text. Because I want to help out everybody who's in opposition to Scientology. And in the court cases, I messed up as well, where I said that I got the with or without prejudice wrong, which was a hiccup, but I would say probably just a hiccup of semantics. I got the crux of the story correctly. So yeah, that's my general rub in Tennessee now. So slowly making my way west, going to fly into LA, probably from Dallas, fly back to Dallas, go from Dallas down to San Antonio, then down to Monterrey, Nueva Laredo, and then down to Monterrey. And so we'll see a lot of Mexico stuff. So I hope that'll be fun. And maybe you guys hate it. Maybe you guys just hate that I have three different topics that I talk about. And maybe that's why I might not be able to ever rub two dimes together with this YouTube. If that's the case, that's okay too. Because I will continue doing it for some time, just because I like communicating with you guys. I have a relationship with my audience, and it's a passion of mine. So hope you enjoyed it. And I'm sure because I was sympathetic for both sides and said nice things, that half the people are going to hate my ginger guts and I have no soul, and I will self-flagellate later. Do comment if you want me to self-flagellate. Take care. Bye, guys.